Alright, hi guys. This is CSE 4410 Game Programming. I am the TA Cole. I will be teaching. First let me go over what the assignments and what you're expected to do are, and then I might go over Unity for a little bit. So, during this class you guys have to make 4 micro games. I'm calling them micro games because they don't have to be entire full games, but they have to have certain mechanics and show that you guys are actually learning game programming. So I picked out a few different genres that you guys can pick from. You can do Pong or Breakout for the first one, do Tower Defense or Shoot 'em Up for the second, Action, Platform, or Racing for the third. I've chosen them this way because as you go down they get more and more complicated. So we're going to start at the top, and this should be the easiest one to make, and I'll also be going over how to make and implement different mechanics that you'll need to do for that. So micro games are supposed to be done individually, but you also have a main project that you can do by yourself or in a group. So we'll have you guys make groups later on before the end of the class today. So for the Pong or Breakout, you have to have a win or lose condition. You have to have a UI that shows like what the current score is, who's currently winning, or so on. And you have to have movement and collisions. So I made example games to show off how you would do that. So this is Breakout. Basically you bounce the ball up and you break the bricks. And as you break in the bricks you can see the score going down. Well, how many bricks you have to get it going down. It might take a minute to come back down to the bottom here, but and now it's stuck up there. Cool. So I'm gonna go to the side over here, and if it hits the bottom then you lose a life. If you lose all your lives then you lose, and then it restarts the game. Whereas the other game is Pong. I have just 2 different control schemes you can use. One player uses W and S, the other uses up and down arrows. And if it gets to the end, then the other person gets a point. Let me let this guy win. The score is 5-1 on this one. Yep, and game over. So it just has UI and it has movement and collisions and a win or lose condition. So pretty simple, and I'll go over how to do the different parts of that. And then Tower Defense or Shoot 'em Up. So this shows you can have a player or a game controller that keeps track of how much health you have. You have enemies that you have to defeat either by shooting them, the Shoot 'em Up. That's like a, let me show you if you guys don't know what Shoot 'em Up is. Top Gun game right here. And you have health and you just shoot the dudes and you get score. And if you get hit, you lose your health. And it just has to have enemies, and the player has to have health, and you have to spawn enemies repeatedly, and you have to have some kind of object that you can defeat the enemies with. So either bullets or lasers or bombs or whatever you guys want. And then a UI that shows your health, or the end of the game, the like lose screen, and then it restarts the scene. And then action, platformer, or racing, those are more broad genres, but you still have to have the same like general mechanics. You have to play your movement, multiple scenes, whether that's a menu and a main game scene, a game over scene, or so on. So like platformer, you can have like 3 different levels or something, and that'll still count. And then you have win or lose condition on those, and also enemies and UI. If it's a racing, you can have 2 people playing on the same computer, and you can have like obstacles on the map, or you can do like an actual AI that goes through the level with you. You have to beat him, but that's kind of harder to do, so up to you guys. And then for the 4th micro game, you have to add on to any of the previous ones with any 3 new mechanics that you want. And yeah, it says you have to have it be related to programming, so you can't just add different art because that's not, programming. So if you do animations, that might be different because you can program in the animation transitions and stuff like that, but you have to show that you did the programming part of it somehow. And then the term project is just going to be make a game by the end of the semester. Whatever you guys want. I recommend not going too crazy and starting early and getting your ideas pretty early because it'll take a long time to do and people usually scope outside of what they can actually do. So, yeah. Any questions? These are possible themes you guys can use to help you guys come up with ideas faster, but you can do whatever you want for it. And if you use a theme, it'll be extra credit a little bit. So, the actual amount of extra credit isn't determined yet, but like if you're having trouble coming up with an idea, restricting it to a theme can help you come up with some interesting games. Oh yeah. Any questions?
Is it possible? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you good. Go on.
So, is it possible to access this document somehow?
Yeah, I'm gonna link it in the Discord, but
Thank you.
I'm gonna link it after this.
And also, there's no like report thing, right? Like you type up some
There are reports. Yeah, you have
paragraph.
to submit progress reports. You have to email both me and Turner a progress report every 2 weeks, I think. There's 8 progress reports total. The first one's due on February 7th, second one on the 21st, third on the 7th, which should be in the syllabus. Probably the syllabus open, huh? Let me show you guys that. Give me a second. Yeah, so progress reports, you will have 8 of those. The first 5 are worth 12 points each, and the last 3 are worth 14 points each. And you just have to describe what progress you've made on any of these projects so far. So like for the first progress report, if you haven't really done a lot of the programming stuff for any of these yet, you can say, oh, we planned out our stuff for our main game. This is what we planned out. This is what we did. And then you can have screenshots and stuff. So I'll give an example of the progress report either Thursday or next week sometime. But it's not due for another 2 weeks or so. So you should be fine for a little bit. Just make sure you guys are making constant progress on your stuff.
Quick question, if you don't mind.
Yes. Yeah, go on. You're good.
So for the progress reports, we can turn in like for example, one of the micro games, we could turn if it's like half done, right? Like if that's like, I guess
Yeah.
you could say progress.
Yeah, it's progress report. Yeah, so if you just do the win condition on this one, but you started the health on this one, then you can say, oh, I did this and then I did this. It's just helpful to have screenshots just so we can see your progress rather than just take your word for it. So I think we'll have to have you include at least 1 or 2 screenshots of it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
No problem. So yeah, I have a layout of what I want to go over generally, but this can change depending on how fast or slow we go through this. So like this is what I'm doing today, but I'm going to try to start on how Unity works also.
Would you mind also linking that too, if you don't mind?
These two?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this is just that's just what I'm going to try to go off of, but we'll see if it changes a lot. But yeah. Has anybody used Unity before? I know some of us were in the game design class, so we used that then also, but
I have a quick question though.
yes.
The assets, do we just find them ourselves, or do you want us to use specific ones?
You can use whatever you want.
Okay, cool.
If you use assets that aren't yours, then you probably have to like reference them somewhere, like credit the artist that you got it from. So, like I had a classmate make me all these assets, like over break. So
Gotcha.
I have the art somewhere. But yeah,
So like let's say like we pull like a player model from like Google Images, can we just reference it, right?
just have a link to it somewhere. Like if you have if you get a post to a game anywhere, then you have to link what you got the art from. So like you would have like a credit scene, and you would just say, this is where I got the art. Like programming by me, art by this guy. I have a link or something. Just to be fair, to whoever did the work.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions? Comments, concerns?
I do have one.
What's up?
So, because my system is like really low end, we're just gonna be working with 2Ds, right?
You can do 2D, you can do 3D, whatever you want. I'm going to be showing you how to do 2D stuff because that's what I've done the
Okay.
most, and also because
And also for
getting,
the term project, right?
yeah, you can do whatever you want. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
2D is just
Just
easier.
wondering.
I've done it more so I can teach it better. 3D, besides getting the models, then I think it's mostly the same. I know 3D has built-in pathfinding stuff you can use, so that's a little more helpful because if you're doing 2D, you have to either just aim the enemy at the player and then push it toward it, or you have to set up your own pathfinding thing, which is a lot more complicated. So, but yeah, 2D's a lot easier and a lot easier to teach too. So, yeah. And I made this little example project so I can explain the different parts of Unity. So if nobody has any more questions, I can go over that real quick. Yeah? Cool. So, when you open up Unity, you should get a blank project, and you should see all these different tabs you don't know what the hell to do with. Let me go to default so you guys see what the normal screen is going to look like. So yours would be empty over here, but basically the game scene, it's always here in the middle, and when you click on the little arrow up here, it runs the game. This is what the player is going to see when they run the game. You're going to interact with it and test it. When you're done, you can just click out of it. So this is how you test the game. To actually populate the game scene, you go to the scene view. And scenes are made up of different game objects, which you can find in this little tab over here called the hierarchy. If you want to add game objects to it, you can right click and go to any one of these. You can do a 3D object, 2D object, lights, you can do particle effects, and so on. Or you can go to the little plus up here and it'll give the same options. Or if you want to just drag something in that you have pre-made, those are called prefabs, you can go to the prefabs tab. You usually have to make your own folders, but yeah, I already have mine set up. You just drag them in to the scene and it adds the object for you. So hierarchy is made up of game objects, and game objects are made up of components. And to see what components an object has, you just click on it. And every game object in Unity starts with a transform component, which determines where it is in the game view, or in the scene itself. So this is at 0, 0, -10, which means it's at 0, 0 on the Cartesian coordinates and -10 on the Z, which we're not going to look at because we're in 2D. Just keep in mind the camera has to be on -10 so you can actually see stuff. So, but yeah, if you want to add components to an object, you can drag them on if they're scripts. Scripts are what lets you actually interact with stuff, like take the input for WASD to move the player around, or get a collision between a bullet and an enemy to damage it, and so on. So my camera here has a component called camera controller that basically just aims it at the player. You open it real quick. When you double click on a script, it'll open it in Visual Studio. Mine's just taking forever to load. So, camera controller. So this just says you have a target. It's going to be the player controller. And you're going to look at the player controller. So, I'll go over more of that later on. But basically, scripts just add functionality to different game objects. If you don't have any scripts on anything, the objects will do almost nothing. So let's see. Sprite renderers are what actually show the sprites on screen. You can add animators too to make things move around. Like, I think the enemy has an animator on it. Yep, right here. Colliders are what actually take collisions, obviously. But moving things around, you can do it a couple different ways. But the best way to do it with the physics is to use a rigid body. Also, everything's in 2D because we're using 2D instead of 3D. Keep in mind, if you have 2D colliders, they won't hit with 3D colliders. They won't register at all. But yeah, so basically rigid bodies let us push objects. So basically we're saying this rigid body on this object, when we move it, we want to just push the object in whatever direction we want. And that way we're pushing it, but also trying to detect collisions that are going to happen. So if I move my player, it's not going to go through the enemy because they have colliders. So yeah, and then usually what I do when I start a game is I go to the project tab, which is where all of your assets are saved, and I make a bunch of different folders. So I make one for like audio, I make one for prefabs, which are basically pre-saved versions of game objects. So I have a player, so I can drag a player into any scene that I want, and then it's going to automatically have the same settings as it would in other scenes. Like if I change the setting for speed in here, it'll change the player's speed over here in the actual scene. And then I make a scenes folder. Scenes are what actually, different levels of your game. A scripts folder. These are animations. Don't worry about those for now. And then sprites. So sprites are a little... So for sprites, this is a sprite sheet. You can change the settings over here in the inspector. And this one has like a dozen sprites or so. And to be able to access all those, I just set its sprite mode to multiple. I change its filter mode to point, which point basically means don't mess with the pixels. So if you're using pixel art, then you want to set it to point so it doesn't look fuzzy. Like if it does anti-aliasing, it looks really weird. And then you would go to the sprite editor, and each of these little ones is a sprite, and you would just draw a box and then use trim if you want to not have to drag this all around yourself. But yeah. So the inspector lets you edit whatever thing you have selected currently. Revert. Let me see what else we need. Hierarchy, inspector, project. A console window shows all your errors. So if something doesn't get a reference correctly, then it'll throw an error in here. If you get an error in your game, it might break other stuff. So if one thing's broken, you want to fix that before you test it again, because it might mess with other stuff and make everything all funky. Just happens a lot.
Quick question.
What's up?
I was wondering if you could show how to, because I installed Visual Studios and Unity separately, because that was the only way Unity was able to install.
Okay, so how to connect them?
Yeah. So how if you could show how to change the editor?
Cool.
So that it's Microsoft. Visual Studios.
Yeah. So you go to the Edit tab, top left. You go down to Preferences, and it should open another tab up. And you go to External Tools. You go to External Script Editor. You just do the drop down. So mine's defaulted to Visual Studio because I already have it, but you would just do Browse and then find whatever folder your Visual Studio is in. You select it from there. For my file extension,
cool.
it can work too.
Thank you.
No problem. And that should make it so that if you're editing a script, then it should autocorrect or help you autofill stuff in. So if you're using Unity Engine, it's connected like that, then you can do target dot, and it'll give you all the options. So all these different functions and variables that you can access from Unity itself, from its namespace. was I going over? So game, animator, animation windows. Yeah, so I'll go over how to set up animations later on, how to have transitions between different animations. If you want to have one thing have just a set animation on it, like this guy just, see it real quick. Animator tab. Let me see if I can show you guys real quick. Yeah. So I'm playing the animation. This is all he's doing ever. It's just this animation looping. So if you want to just give a game object an animation that never ends like that, then you would just go to the sprites and you would left click one sprite and then left click the other sprite, or shift click, select all of them, and you just drag it into the object. So I would do, what's this guy's name? It's a grub. So this guy should just move like that forever. And I can add functionality later to have him move when certain things are happening and if he's attacking or whatever. But for now, he just does that forever. But yeah.
Quick question.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm downloading the right Unity, but it says activate your license. Is that?
Everyone needs to have a license to use Unity, but you can get a personal license and it should be free. The professional licenses cost money, but if you go to the Unity website, you can just do...
If you download the Unity Hub, it should give you an option to activate it. You would just need to save your license. Like, they give you like a license file that you save on your desktop
Don't do
or
that.
whatever.
Yeah, I see that one. And then you use like personal edition.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
personal.
then you just upload the
Unity Hub is
license.
here. Yeah, Unity Hub's helpful if you have multiple versions of Unity going on. I have it because I used it for 2019.3 and 2020.1, and I had to switch between different games that had it, so I had to update different things. But yeah,
Okay, perfect.
Unity Hub's good. Tile palette.
So with the animations, it looked like they were going kind of fast. Is there a way to change the...
Yes. So you go to the animator tab, you click on the animation that you want to change. It should show up in the inspector and you can change speed. So I would do 0.1. And then when I play it in the game, let me see. Oh, there we go. It doesn't show in the inspector. Gotcha. Yeah, so it's going really slow now. And I can change it to be like 1, 2, 3, pause at 0, so on. And I'll go over how to add different animations in this little tab, and over here, and how to have transitions and stuff later on. Let's see.
I have a good question.
What's up?
The prefabs, are they sort of kind of like objects of the game?
They're objects that you have pre-saved. Sorry. So this one is just an object in the scene. But if I drag it into the prefab folder, it makes a prefab of it. And I can drag it anywhere, and it'll make an exact copy of this thing that I saved.
So you can sort of like combine audio, like the scripts, the sprites, all into like one prefab. And
Yes.
plug it in. Okay.
Yeah, so you make one little package of everything you need for one object or one group of objects, you could say. So like this player, the enemy shoots bullets at the player. So instead of having one bullet in the scene that I keep on copying over and over again, I have a prefab of a bullet that I get a reference to. So this bullet is what's going to spawn every time the enemy shoots. I just specify what this bullet does and then save all the settings to it. And then tell this enemy, hey, you're going to grab this thing. Like if I change, and if you don't like the settings on the thing, the prefab that you've saved, you can just edit the prefab itself. So like say this dude is too, the color's a little weird. I would just change the color on here, and all the colors on these ones should change too. So they're all dark now. And I can change their speed, their attack, whatever. I can change whatever I want about this one, and they'll change on all these guys. If you don't want that to happen, you can disconnect the prefab. I think it's called unpacking. And then it's not a prefab anymore. So if I change this one, it won't edit any of these ones. It's like a different entity now. Different object. Yeah, let me go over this. So my player moves with WASD, but I can also have him move with the arrow keys. That is possible because Unity has a built-in thing for input. It's right here, Input Manager. So you can save all of your different button inputs to named instances. Like it has, by default, these 30 or so of them. So the horizontal axis is left or right, but also A and D. And there's another one down here for controllers. So you can do controller input from here too. So you can save whatever settings you want to, whatever inputs settings you want to a name, and then just call that in a script, and you can change your controls. Hello?
I have a question. Button.
Okay.
Can we also do UI buttons?
Yes. Yes, UI buttons are good. We'll also go over UI buttons and different things like that. If you want to make UI, you can go to this little plus up here, UI, and it has all these different options for you. So you can make text, you can make images, which my health is an image that I am. Where's my health at? I had health. There we go. Too far up. So my health is a UI image that I'm just referencing and changing when I'm getting hurt. So, and you can do different interactions with buttons. I'll show you how to do that later on. Like when you click on a button, it'll load the next scene, or it'll select what character you want, and so on. Just keep in mind that if you're using UI, you have to have a canvas that it's attached to. Basically tells Unity to, instead of having everything have, instead of having the UI be on the transform component, it's on the rect transform component, which basically says, don't draw me way down here where everything else is, draw me way up here in this giant menu thing, this part of the screen. But yeah. Any questions so far? I know it's a lot with the different windows. It's more of like an overview. Once we actually get into specific examples of stuff, it'll make more sense. Once I start scripting and getting some interaction with the game, it'll make more sense to you guys. No questions? All right. Hello?
Yeah, so sorry, I actually have one.
What's up?
It seems like our grade is based on the progress reports.
Yes.
Well, what I'm worried about is the outline of it. What should it include? How fast or how yeah. So when can you release the format for progress reports?
I can try to do it tonight if you want. Otherwise, Thursday. Because the format's not really like. Um, basically, you just have to list
I'm
out what you
looking
did
at-
for the thing, what you did in the last 2 weeks. So you can.
Because I'm looking at the GitHub part that Turner sent out.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah.
Assignments,
The
micro
great
games,
calculation thing.
supports.
And I'm really worried about that part.
Don't be too stressed about it. Just list out the things that you did. Like.
So like majority of like showing proof is basically gonna be like a lot of screenshots, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping there's screenshots so people don't just say stuff. So I'm sure I'll
Okay.
require
I'm just
screenshots.
asking, like, if you want us to do screenshots or like copy and paste code somewhere or.
Yeah, so ideally, I would like you to have a screenshot of the game itself. If you worked on different multiple games, you could just have different screenshots of the games. And then if you edited code, you would just take a screenshot of the code. If it's really long, you can just like take 1 or 2 screenshots of it. You don't have to do the entire thing because it could be a lot. But little snippets of what you actually did.
Would a screen record work too? Is that fine?
Can you send screen records on? Wait.
Because I was just gonna use like OBS and screen record, and then you could just compress the file.
It'll send it as a Google Drive link.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can send it in email, it's probably fine. Yeah, that's probably fine as long as we can open it. If we have trouble opening it, we'll probably just ask you to send something else instead. But if it works, then yeah, that's probably fine. As long as we can tell you guys did work, then it should be fine. But if you just list off things like made game, wrote code, and I see nothing else, then I'm like, I don't know if you did anything. That's why screenshots are helpful. But besides that, we're not going to be strict about it. Just show us what you did and you'll be fine.
Okay. So like 2 sentences, couple of screenshots of both the code and the game itself, right?
Yeah. I'll have an example. I'll try to do one later today, actually, so everybody knows.
Thanks, man.
Let me link both of these real quick so you guys can see it. Anybody has more questions, let me know now while I'm just hanging out. The plan is to go over a bunch of different mechanics, and then after like 2 weeks, then I'll try to do one of the micro games. Like I'll show how to make Breakout after like 3 weeks, and then I'll show how to do Pong, and then I'll go to more mechanics, and then after another couple weeks, I'll go over how to do Tower Defense or the Shoot 'em Up. Haven't decided if I'm going to show you how to do all of them or just one example of that micro game set. Like instead of showing you how to do an action platformer and racing, I'll just show you how to do like a platformer. Because a lot of the mechanics can kind of transfer over. Just some of the logic is more or less the same. You just have to do a couple different things. Like for platformer, you have to do it in 2D with gravity, whereas action, it's just top down, so there's no gravity anywhere. So you have to change the code accordingly to that.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So how it's gonna work is every Tuesday and Thursday we're gonna learn mechanics, and then after a certain while we're gonna create the games.
I'm going to be showing the
so-
mechanics, and then eventually I'll show you how to make the games. But you should try to do the games as I'm teaching the mechanics to show that you're learning it.
So that's when we, so in our progress reports we can say implemented this mechanic to the game basically.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So, the main part of the class is going to be the micro games to show you guys are learning, but there's also the term project, which is giant too. So, do you guys want to start trying to figure out what your groups are going to be?
How big are the groups?
However big you want. I recommend...
You can work
Do it
alone, right?
individually as well, right?
Yes, you can do individually or you can do with a big group. I recommend doing in a small group.
Yeah, alright, so I have a question then. If someone chooses to do it individually, would you expect like a game of the same size from that person as you would the group?
No. This class is to show that you're learning game programming. So if you're doing it solo, that means you're doing all the programming. So if anything, you're showing more than other students by doing it solo. But doing it in a team would be more fun probably. And less frustrating because you can kind of divide up the work and try to figure out stuff together.
Alright, thank you.
No problem. So let me know if these links work for you guys.
We need access with them.
You need... I want to give you guys like total access. Only people... Oh, only people... Okay, there you go. Gotcha. Anybody with the link can view. Okay, there you go. Sorry. Fix that.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah, it's working now.
For one of them, it's working. The other...
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, they're both working.
Yeah, so you need your microphone. One works, the other one doesn't.
But the other one works now. You just have to reload it.
Okay, it works now.
I don't know what this link can view. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. I didn't want to let you guys edit the thing, so... Cool. Does anybody have any more questions about the class or the term project or the micro games? Nope.
Is there a limit to whether we should make it multiplayer or single player?
The micro games?
Yeah.
Either way is fine, but for some of them, it'll be harder to do, to make an AI for it. Like if you're doing the racing game, it might be harder to get the AI to move through the map in a good way. So whatever you guys think is fine, but I'm gonna show you guys how I did mine. Hopefully that gives you guys enough room to make it yourself. Just gonna show off the games real quick. So I did a lot of work on these games in the time between classes. If you guys want, I made an intros page. So if you want to post what kind of work you guys want to do, what your experience is, and so on, for getting your teams for your group project if you want. If you want to do it solo, then you don't have to do anything.
So if we already have our groups predetermined, where would we post that, or do we just tell you?
Just let me know, and I'll make a group for you guys, a group channel.
Okay.
think that's about all I have today.
Cole, is it okay if we do it in DM, or do you want us to send it?
However you guys want. If you want to DM me, that's fine. If you want to post it in here, then that's fine too. Up to you guys.
I already have it in DM. So.
Cool.
So on the topic of groups, anybody want to be in a group with me?
Yeah, I'm down.
I posted one of my ideas for kind of like a mini game that I thought up for the final project in the finding a group chat. You guys are interested, I'm probably fine with. Actually, I could probably use help because I'm inept when it comes to those things.
Sounds cool.
Cole.
Yes.
I don't see any due dates for the micro games.
They're
I
not.
mean, there's progress report.
It's just the progress reports. So you can just say what your
it's
progress
just
is.
progress report.
Yes.
So it's not you're not like turning in the whole game.
No.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm gonna check the progress though, like on these days, like the Thursdays before the progress reports are due. I'll probably ask if you guys need any help, and then I'll spend the class doing that if you guys have trouble with certain parts. Just so you have time to do everything.
Just for clarification, it's not like progress 1, 2 is strictly for micro game 1, right?
It's the progress reports for anything you've done. So say,
Okay.
yeah. So say,
So basically throughout the semester.
yeah. So say these first 2
Makes
weeks you haven't done anything on the micro games, but you planned out your actual game and started that. You would say, oh, we started to make our term project. And for our term project, it's going to be this and this. And then you would show screenshots of you actually adding stuff to your term project.
Quick question. How many allowed in a group?
However many you want.
Oh.
I recommend less than 5 people.
Okay.
Because it's also going to be hard to program different parts. Because if you're working in a group, you have to set up GitHub or Unity Collab. Unity has a built-in thing called Unity Collab that lets you work on your project with other people. Problem with it is sometimes it doesn't sync up correctly.
You missed it up. You missed it up.
Oh, it's up there somewhere?
On the top. Somewhere. The top or
Collaborate. There you go. Thanks. So collaborate. So you can add people to your Unity Collaborate, and then there's a little button up here that says like push or add changes. And then if somebody changed something, you would like sync up to theirs, and you would download whatever they changed. But like last semester, I was using it, and it worked up until the last week of class, and then it stopped adding certain things that my teammates were adding. So I had to make all the changes myself in the last like 3 days of class. So if it works the whole time, that's great. Otherwise, you have to use GitHub. In GitHub, you have to just make the... I use GitHub Desktop for my stuff. That makes it easier to add what you have on your computer currently. And you just add people on the GitHub website to be collaborators to your game, and then edit stuff from there. I think I'm going to stop recording now, because I think that's the basic class.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll stay, obviously, for questions.